Morning sunlight washed over Arlington, spilling gold across the endless white rows of headstones. The air was crisp, touched with the smell of fresh-cut grass and cool marble. Flags snapped sharply in the breeze, and in the center of it all, a single figure moved with clockwork precision. His boots struck stone with a rhythm that carried like a heartbeat. 21 steps, pause, rifle gleaming, 21 steps again. The silence was a living thing, heavy, reverent, sacred. And then it shattered. Laughter rang out, high, sharp, too loud against the hush. It wasn't nervous laughter, not respectful chuckles from a tourist unsure how to behave. This was mocking, a laugh that cut through reverence like a blade. She had arrived in heels that clicked against the stone, the flash of cameras at her back. A young heiress draped in wealth, her silk dress bright against the sober crowd, diamond earrings winking in the sun. She trailed a cluster of friends and photographers, their voices hushed only when her laughter broke free. "There," she pointed, giggling, "look at him, like a wind-up toy. Back and forth, back and forth. Is that really a job? My chauffeur moves with more expression." Her friends smirked, trying to keep quiet, but one snapped a photo, the click piercing the solemn air. The guard did not react. His face stayed stone, eyes locked forward, rifle tight against his shoulder, boots struck with the same rhythm. Thud, thud, thud. The veteran in the front row stirred in his wheelchair, his weathered hand gripping the armrest until the leather creaked. His other hand clutched a small flag to his chest. He shook his head slowly, whispering, "Show respect, girl. Show respect." But the heiress didn't hear, or didn't care. She threw her head back and laughed again, louder this time, echoing off the marble. "What are you? A statue? Do you even blink?" The crowd shifted, unease, by their silence turning sharp. A mother hushed her child. A man lowered his hat, jaw tightening. The air carried faint gun oil, sharp and metallic, from the guard's rifle, a smell that suddenly seemed more alive than the perfume drifting from the heiress. She strutted closer, heels tapping against stone, ignoring the velvet rope that marked the boundary. She leaned forward as the guard pivoted, her laughter bubbling. "Smile for the camera, soldier boy. Don't they pay you to look fierce?" The guard's rifle caught the sun as he turned, the metal flashing like a blade. His body pivoted with mathematical precision, head snapping, eyes locked forward. He gave her nothing. His silence was a wall. The crowd held its breath. Even the children were still. The heiress smirked, whispering loud enough for all to hear. "My father owns half this city. You think I'm afraid of a man who can't even speak?" Her photographer friend chuckled nervously, but lifted the camera again. The shutter clicked. The veteran whispered to no one, "She doesn't know. She doesn't know what he stands for." His voice broke, and he turned his face away, ashamed to watch. The heiress tilted her head, bored with the silence. She stepped closer again, ignoring the rope completely now, crossing the sacred line without hesitation. The texture of the rough gravel crunched under her designer heels. She raised her phone, holding it high, angling the camera. Perfect! A selfie with Mr. Robot Soldier. The guard kept marching, boots against stone, the rifle polished to silver fire. He drew closer, steps timed, posture unbroken. His shadow stretched across the marble, cutting toward her like a blade. She laughed once more, forcing the sound louder, mocking. "Let's see if he even notices." And then she did it. She stepped directly into his path. The guard pivoted, his eyes blazing beneath the brim, rifle gleaming in the full morning light. The crowd gasped aloud, some stepping back, some whispering frantic prayers. Even the heiress faltered for an instant, her smile frozen as the silence around her thickened into something alive, something ancient. The veteran bowed his head, whispering, "God help her now." And the guard stopped just short of her, boots striking one final echo. The rifle angled like steel lightning at his chest. His face did not change, but his presence filled the plaza. The heiress's laughter hung brittle in the air, and the morning sun burned white against marble. Mid-morning shadows stretched across the plaza, clouds rolling in to dim the brightness of the day. The silence was brittle now, fractured by the arrogance of one voice. The Heiress stood too close to the black mat, her friends holding back just enough to let her shine in the spotlight of her own making. The guard marched on, boots cracking against the marble like the steady beat of a drum. His rifle gleamed, rain smell already curling through the air as the storm crept closer. The crowd stayed hushed, reverence tightening into unease. They knew she had crossed a line unseen, a line that was not to be tested. She laughed again, sharp and piercing. "You hear that sound? Thud, 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 like a metronome. Do you even feel alive under there?" She leaned forward, voice dripping mockery. "A statue for tourists, that's all you are." A veteran in the front row stirred, his cap pulled low over eyes that had seen combat. His voice rasped out, gravel worn thin by time. "Show respect, young lady. This is not a stage." The heiress turned her head and smirked at him. "Respect? For silence? Please, I've paid more for shoes than this ceremony is worth." Her laugh rang out again, crueler now, echoing against marble that was built for prayer, not for scorn. The guard pivoted. Click, crack. The sound of his rifle bolt shifting sliced through the air. It was slight, deliberate, and every veteran in the crowd stiffened at the noise. It was a sound they knew, mechanical, final, heavy with warning. The heiress grinned wider, mistaking fear for amusement. "Did you hear that? He's pretending to be serious." She stepped closer, heels slipping slightly on the gravel beyond the rope. Her perfume, sweet and heavy, seemed to choke the air that should have carried only grass and stone. The veteran raised his voice now, trembling but fierce. "That tomb holds every soldier who never came home. You think this is a game?" His words cracked in the air, but she only laughed again, higher, harsher. "I think this is pathetic." She reached into her bag, pulled out a crisp dollar bill, and with a flourish tossed it at the guard's boots. The bill fluttered wet against the marble, bright green against white stone, trembling in the wind. "There," she said, "for the show." The crowd gasped as one, outrage swelling. A woman sobbed quietly. A man muttered, "God forgive her." The guard did not break stride. His boots struck down, water splashing from the stone as the sky darkened overhead. His eyes, hidden under the brim of his hat, flicked toward her, steady, cold, unyielding. Legendary silence, legendary stillness, yet his presence shouted louder than thunder, and still the heiress smiled, her laugh brittle in the heavy air. The veteran bowed his head and whispered, "She's marked her own judgment." Above, the first drops of rain began to fall. Noon brought darkness instead of light. The sky above Arlington boiled with storm clouds, flags snapping violently in the wind. The crowd drew tighter together, umbrellas straining, but none left. They sensed something greater than weather was about to break. The heiress stood in the open, her silk dress whipped by the wind, her phone raised high. Behind her, the white marble of the tomb glowed beneath the floodlights, a beacon against the storm. She angled herself, pouting for the camera. "Perfect backdrop," she said, her voice carrying across the plaza. "A photo for the world. #RobotSoldier." The veteran groaned from his chair, his voice breaking. "Please, stop. You don't know what you're doing." His hands trembled as he held the flag to his chest, rain beginning to soak the cloth. But the heiress only turned and posed harder, snapping a shot with the tomb itself in frame. "Smile, stone man," she laughed. "You're famous now." The guard's boots struck the marble with their relentless rhythm. Thud, thud, thud. He pivoted, rifle catching a spear of lightning. His face betrayed nothing, but the tension was a rope pulled to breaking. And then, she stepped closer still. She crossed the last inches of sacred ground, placing herself between the tomb and the man who guarded it. She raised her phone again, smirking. "One selfie. What will you do? Arrest me?" The crowd gasped, sharp as a knife. A mother clutched her child to her chest. The veteran wept openly now, whispering, "She's crossed it. Dear God, she's crossed it." The guard moved. His boots slammed down, harder than before, echoing like a cannon shot across the plaza. He stepped off the black mat. The forbidden step, the line only abandoned in emergency. Gasps rippled through the witnesses like a shockwave. Even the rain seemed to hesitate, drops hanging heavy in the storm air. The heiress froze, her smile faltering as the truth hit her. He was no statue. He was not for show. He was alive, moving, breaking the line to face her. Lightning split the sky, bathing the plaza in white fire. And in that instant came the legendary image, the guard standing tall against the storm, rifle leveled across his chest, bayonet gleaming like judgment itself. The tomb behind him burned in light, and before him the heiress stood, mouth parted, her laughter drowned in fear. The guard's voice rang out, sharp as steel tearing stone, the first words he had spoken. "Step back." The air went still. The crowd gasped as one, the words heavier than thunder. The heiress trembled, her phone shaking in her hand. The veteran whispered through tears. At last, he spoke, and the storm broke in full. The storm unleashed its fury. Rain lashed the marble in torrents, streaming down the carved words of the tomb until they gleamed like tears. Thunder rolled above Arlington like artillery fire, each crash shaking the very ground. Lightning strobed the plaza, freezing every movement into stark, blinding images. The heiress stood dripping, her silks plastered to her skin, diamonds dull under the storm. Her phone dangled useless in her trembling hand, yet she found her voice. Shrill, furious, cutting. "You think you can order me? Do you know who I am?" Her words cracked, high-pitched against the low thunder. "My family owns this city. I can walk where I want, when I want. You're nothing but a servant in a costume." The guard did not move. He stood at full height, rifle across his chest, soaked wool uniform heavy but unyielding. Rain hammered his brim, streamed down his face, but his eyes, dark, unblinking, locked on hers. Silence answered her rage. The veteran lifted his head, rain masking his tears. His voice rose above the storm, trembling but clear. "This is no costume. This man carries the weight of every soldier who never came home. This silence is their voice." The heiress screamed, pointing at him. "Shut up, old man! You're all fossils clinging to myths." She spun back to the guard, hair whipping across her face. "Do you hear me? I am rich. I am powerful. You cannot stop me." She stepped closer, heels slipping against wet marble, her face inches from his chest. Her voice became a hiss. "Move aside, or I'll have you dismissed, fired, gone." But the guard's silence was crushing. Rain poured off the brim of his hat, dripping from his jaw like iron tears. His breathing did not quicken, his stance did not break. Every heartbeat of stillness pressed on her, heavier than chains. The crowd watched, spellbound. A mother clutched her child tighter. The boy's small voice broke the tension, pure and honest. "Mama, why is she laughing at the soldier who never laughs?" The question cut deeper than any shout. The heiress faltered, her words catching in her throat. For the first time, her bravado cracked. She looked around. The crowd's faces were not with her. They stared at her in disgust, in sorrow. She was alone. The veteran's voice came again, steadier now. "Every step he takes, every moment he stands, is for the ones whose names we'll never know. And you laugh at them." The heiress trembled, rain and mascara streaking her face, her voice breaking into a scream to cover her fear. "He's just a man in uniform." Lightning erupted, blinding, and when it cleared, the guard was still there, unmoved, rifle gleaming, eyes locked. His silence answered louder than thunder. The heiress staggered, her scream dying in her throat. The storm passed as suddenly as it had come. Dawn broke over Arlington, soft gold spilling across the soaked ground. Mist curled up from the marble, rising in thin veils as if the fallen themselves breathed the new morning. The air was clean now, washed of arrogance and thunder alike. The heiress stood shivering, her silks ruined, hair matted to her face. Her diamonds caught the morning sun, but no longer gleamed with pride, only with shame. Her phone hung useless at her side. The crowd around her was silent, eyes fixed on the figure who still had not moved. The guard stood as he had all night, soaked, battered by rain, but unbroken. His rifle rested firm across his chest, his eyes forward, his posture eternal. He adjusted his gloves with slow precision, the same ritual that had carried on for generations of watchmen. He had weathered the storm as stone, and the storm had not touched him. The veteran clutched his flag, the cloth warm now against his chest from his own trembling hands. His voice cracked, but he forced it out. "Young lady, look at him. Look at what you mocked. That is not just a man. That is a promise, carved into flesh and bone." The heiress's knees buckled. She sank down onto the wet marble, mascara running with her tears. The arrogance was gone. Her voice, small and hoarse, broke into the silence. "I didn't know. I didn't understand." The guard turned his head at last. Just enough. His eyes locked on her, unblinking, steady as the dawn itself. For hours he had spoken nothing, endured everything. But now, once, and only once, his voice came. It was deep, raw, carrying the weight of centuries and graves. "You laugh because you do not carry the dead." The words struck like stone. They silenced the plaza. The heiress collapsed fully, weeping into her hands, her arrogance drowned in truth. The crowd bowed their heads. Some cried, some saluted. A child whispered. He spoke. The veteran kissed the corner of his flag, whispering, "Thank you." And the guard, he turned back. He stepped onto the black mat once more. Boots struck the marble. 1, 2, 3, resuming the eternal 21 steps. The sound rang pure and holy across the plaza. The sun crowned the tomb now, white marble blazing, words etched sharper than ever. "Here rests in honored glory an American soldier known but to God." The legendary moment rose, the guard marching, rifle gleaming in dawn's fire, the heiress kneeling in tears behind him, and the veteran holding his flag to the sky. The voiceover lingered, low, final. One word can silence laughter when it carries the weight of every grave. The storm broke, like a curtain pulled away, leaving Arlington glistening and still. The first light of dawn swept low across the cemetery, catching every raindrop on every headstone until they looked like rows of candles burning for the dead. Steam curled from the marble plaza, rising in ghostly tendrils, as though the earth itself exhaled after holding its breath all night. The heiress no longer laughed. Her silks hung heavy, soaked and ruined, clinging like shackles. Her hair plastered to her cheeks, mascara streaking black rivers down her pale face. She stood unsteady, her phone forgotten in her trembling hand. The diamonds at her ears still glittered, but now they mocked her, gaudy ornaments in a place where silence was the only jewel. The crowd lingered in reverence, unwilling to leave, though the night had been long. They did not look at her. They looked past her, at the man who had not broken, at the figure who had stood like the tomb itself, unmoving, unyielding. The guard stood where he had always been, his uniform soaked dark, his gloves stained from rain and stone, yet his posture was unbent. His rifle still gleamed as if polished by the storm itself. He looked not like a man who had endured the night, but like a monument that had simply waited for dawn. The veteran raised his head from his chair, his frail hand clutching the folded flag tight to his chest. His voice rasped through the quiet, raw but strong. "Young lady, you mocked silence, you mocked service," and still he stood, not for himself, but for the brothers who will never speak again. You laughed at ghosts who gave you a life you do not understand. The heiress's eyes filled, her lips trembling. She staggered forward, the slick marble betraying her heels until she slipped to her knees. She caught herself on her hands, water splashing around her. The crowd gasped, but not for her fall, for the sight of her broken, humbled, stripped of the armor of wealth. Her voice cracked. I didn't know." I thought it was theatre. I thought it was for tourists. Her shoulders shook as sobs forced their way through. I didn't know. The veteran's eyes softened, but his words did not. You didn't want to know. You lived without weight. But he pointed with a trembling hand toward the guard. He carries weight every second he breathes, for the ones who cannot. And then it happened. For the first time since dawn touched the plaza, the guard turned, just enough to fix his gaze on her. His silence pressed down heavier than stone. And then, once, only once, he spoke. You laugh, because you do not carry the dead. The words cut through the plaza like a blade. They carried the weight of every grave, every unknown, every folded flag pressed into a mother's arms. They carried the silence of every battlefield where names were lost to dust. The heiress's sobs broke open. Her phone clattered against the marble, forgotten, her diamonds meaningless now. She buried her face in her wet hands and wept, not as a celebrity, not as an heiress, but as a human who had finally been forced to see the cost behind the silence. The crowd bowed their heads. Some pressed hands to hearts, some saluted through their tears. A child whispered softly, "Mama," the soldier spoke. The mother held him close, tears running silently down her cheeks. The veteran kissed the corner of his flag, whispering words meant only for the fallen. And the guard, he turned back. His boots struck the mat once more. Thud, thud, thud. 21 steps, pivot, pause. 21 again. The eternal rhythm resumed as if nothing had happened, but everyone present knew. Everything had. The sun crowned the tomb, blazing against the carved words. Here rests in honored glory an American soldier known but to God. Mist rose in golden fire around the marble. The guard's silhouette cut against it, rifle gleaming, body moving with the same eternal vow. And there was the legendary final image. The guard resuming his march, haloed by morning light, the heiress kneeling in tears on the wet stone behind him, the veteran lifting his flag high, the crowd silent in reverence. A tableau of shame, duty, sacrifice, and redemption, all captured in one frozen breath of history. The voiceover came low, steady, carrying the lesson like scripture. One word can silence laughter when it carries the weight of every grave. If this story shook you, if it made you remember that silence and sacrifice are worth more than diamonds or fame, then carry it forward. Share this with someone who may have forgotten what honor looks like. Subscribe, stand with us, and let the world know that respect is not optional, it is owed. At Arlington, at the tomb, and in every heart that still remembers the cost of freedom,